Hey everybody, welcome to GeekyKOOL presents Geeky Cinephiles. I'm Larry the Professor, and over next to me here is my good buddy Joe. Or
Oh,
today he is, I forget,
Glow Jason.
Glow. Yeah, there we go. It wasn't showing up there for me for a moment. Glow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like the female wrestling show, Glow. Um,
I, yeah, definitely.
Today, we're going to talk about a movie that came out back in the summertime, but really kind of fits in this season better than the summer. We're going to talk about the movie Sinners. So, background on the movie, it takes place in 1932 in Clarksdale, Mississippi, which is kind of way out there in Mississippi. It
Yes.
focuses on a couple of twins, Elijah Smoke and Elisa Stack. They're
That.
twins and both played by the same actor who happens to be one Michael B. Jordan. They have left the Chicago area and have come back with some money, and they want to open up a juke joint, which is a dancing and drinking club in 1930s. And of course, this is still while Prohibition is going on.
Yeah.
They buy a sawmill from a landowner, an old abandoned sawmill. Landowner sells it to them, and the uh, the whole idea is for the juke joint is to bring in some local black community. But the guy who sells it
Where-
may not necessarily love that idea. They bring in their cousin Sammy, who is the son of a preacher. So they call him Preacher Boy, which I love.
Yeah.
Preacher Boy, Preacher Boy. But he's a heck of a blues guitar player. And his father does not approve of that. Basically, says he's going to bring in the devil with his playing. You see that
Yeah.
very early
Music.
on. That's kind of cool. They also go out and recruit a well-known pianist in the area and bring in some people to help run the place, to do the cooking. A really excellent cook comes in. You've got Cornbread who comes in as a bouncer, and so you've got quite a cast. Um, the interesting thing I thought was this movie really takes its time, develops these characters where you kind of get to know who they are. You kind of
Yeah.
like them, at least some of them, right?
Sure.
It develops that whole thing of the characters before you really kind of bring in the what's going to happen next. So,
Right.
so the background of the movie is it's basically the black community coming together to create a new dance alcohol place out in the middle of nowhere for them to be able to go gather around. And these two brothers believe they can make a lot of money doing this because they've seen this done and have operated different things in the past. And they bring this in with some music. Then things get a little wild, and we'll talk about that. But that's kind of the background of where the movie is. You've got these great character developments going on of these various black community characters that all know each other, and some of them haven't seen each other for years, and some of them are kind of angry that some of them have ghosted them, like a certain couple of females
Who's back in town?
back in town, right? So we're going to give you that for a synopsis, and then we'll kind of tell more of it as we give a review. If you don't know by now, this is actually a vampire movie. And you don't know it's a vampire movie. I mean, I knew from the commercials it's a vampire movie, but you really don't get to the vampires until the last third of the movie because they're
Yeah.
building characters. Um,
Yeah.
what do
I
you
think
think
it's
of that, Joe? What do you think of the style of doing it that way? What are your thoughts here?
I mean, I got all kinds of thoughts, but one of the thoughts that I kept having is my girlfriend and I. It sparked like a 10-minute conversation between us, and you know what? Any movie that can at least make you think, or at least you know, have make you have questions, I think is a pretty solid movie in itself.
Right. I agree with that. I agree with that. You know, I'm a big fan of Alfred Hitchcock. Love Alfred Hitchcock movies. Those are my favorite kind of scary movies. Is Alfred Hitchcock, Psycho,
Yeah.
The Birds. My favorite one's Rebecca. Um,
Okay.
so I love how Alfred Hitchcock builds things up, and the character development of this movie, the way that they paced it to where they got you invested in the characters before something starts happening, is
Yeah.
reminiscent of the Alfred Hitchcock style. And I
Yeah.
love that. I loved how it's showing me a part of a movie that I really don't have a lot of other exposure to. I've seen some different movies in the black community, kind of in the same time period in Chicago or other places, but in the deep South, I don't have a lot of exposure to kind of what that was going on. I found it fascinating, the interactions, the character
Yeah.
development, and these two brothers fascinated me, kind of their different personalities, and that you've got the same actor playing them both and playing brothers that are connected but also very different in personality.
And they call themselves each other cousins.
They,
So in public, they say they're
well,
cousins.
yeah, yeah. Well, I know that they referred to the one as cousin, but I didn't know they called them. I didn't remember that. I
Yeah.
saw it a couple weeks ago. I saw this movie a couple weeks ago, and I
Okay.
went, okay, we've got to talk about this one. So
That was a good.
yeah,
That was a good summary of the movie too. Good summary.
yeah. Thank you, thank you. The what did you think of how they brought in the vampires?
Yeah. So I was kind of like you. I was like, where is this going?
Right,
And
right.
then how they brought it in, I thought they did a pretty good job. Um, one thing that's about vampire movies is a lot of the vampire movies have the hard, fast rules, but this one didn't have the hard, fast rules. It was changing it up a little bit. And what I mean by that is every vampire movie has sunlight as a weakness. Every
Yep.
vampire movie has a cross as a weakness, but they all kind of throw something different in. I've noticed that a lot of vampire
Right,
movies they throw a twist in, and I thought it was pretty cool. It was interesting coming from music. That music was the driver.
right, right. That it was drawing them in. The first time we see a vampire, we see a couple living out in the middle of nowhere, and there's a knock on their door, and it's still daylight out. But it's getting nighttime or whatever, and somebody is begging for them to let them in, and basically says the engines are after him. And come
Yeah,
to find out that it was the they were after him because it was the Choctaw vampire hunter group of Indians. So Native
yeah,
American vampire hunters, which I love that you've got that in lore now. I'm like,
yeah, yeah,
okay, tell me more about these guys because that
yeah.
fascinates me. So they let this
That was
guy in. They hide him in to take care of him. But as he's at the door knocking, you can see the steam rising off of his skin because
yeah,
he's burning because it's still sunlight out, right? So whatever happened, they have chased him out of wherever he was hiding and waiting until evening and pursuing this guy. And he had to take a chance to go out in at least some sunlight to be able to try to survive. So
yeah.
that I found fascinating.
That was
They
pretty cool.
they open up the door for him. Of course, he can't come in unless he's invited. That's one of the vampire rules, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yeah. Hard, fast rules.
that's one of the rules. You can't come into somebody's dwelling without being invited. So they invite him in and hide him. And as they're hiding him, the wife answers the door, tells the vampire hunting Indians that they've not seen him, they don't know anything about him. The person in charge of it warns her against letting this guy in. Of course, it's too late; he's already in.
He's
When
got a
they
gun.
leave, yeah, yeah. When they leave, she comes back inside and finds that her husband has been not only bit but is being eaten on, but comes back to
Yeah.
life, of course, as a vampire. And so that's where we get our first group of vampires. Is that? Um, and these vampires find their way down to this juke joint because of the music and everything else. So they find their way there. The interesting thing is because they actually almost invite him in, and they're like, something is weird here. And plus,
They're
they
white
were all
Southern.
white. All three of them were white, so they weren't really sure about inviting them in anyway. Because if something, and I love the explanation is, if somebody comes in and spills a drink on them, and somebody gets upset and somebody gets hurt, we are the ones going to be taking hell from the the police or whoever. So they were very intentional. They didn't want him in there because of the liability that they could have, right, for having something happen.
Yeah, they were gentlemanly about it. They were,
They weren't mean about it. The then after it gets so in the meantime, people are kind of coming and going, and so the vampires start picking people off on the outside before you know it, which was fascinating because that makes sense to me. Hang outside of a club, they won't let you in. Hang outside there, and one of the brothers gets bit, and all sorts of craziness happens there. By the girl that he really likes, right? She's trying to. She actually is supposed to be with another guy. Was it her brother? Anyway, whoever it was, he takes her in there, and she bites him, and then all sorts of stuff happens. But the interesting thing was when they come to the door trying to get invited in, and basically say, after they know that these things are some sort of weird undead thing before they're really labeled vampire, he basically says, yeah, these, just so you know, these two here were part of the KKK and they were coming to lynch you guys, just so you know. That they had already had intentions. They're like, oh yeah, we were that way, but we're not that way anymore. In fact, we don't mind joining you and having you join us, and then we can be, we can all be one and sing together and do all that. So it was interesting. Becoming a vampire made them non-racist. I guess they didn't care if it was white meat or dark meat. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, they did a good job of setting the stage too, where it was relative and informing about some of their cultural things that the way they in this country, they've had it really hard. It was
one of the girls that was in the club was into voodoo, at least at a level, and had actually heard about vampires before, and so they were trying to prep on how to prevent it. They weren't going to let anybody else leave, but then you've already got people outside that they're very close with that have become vampires. And then the one brother fully turns, breaks down the door. I mean, there's all sorts of craziness there.
About an hour in between the turn, right, when they get bit.
Right.
And what was interesting too is, like I said, they threw their own twist on it. When you got bit and became a vampire, you looked exactly like a human. You weren't messed up. You didn't have scars. Yeah. And the only way you know is when their eyes turn red.
Right.
But
now we're in trouble.
Yeah.
And at one point, they were basically, there were enough people that had gotten turned that the place was almost surrounded by vampires. And one of the girls was going, and they were continuing to play music. And they played this, I don't remember what the song was, but they were playing some song and they were all singing together. And they were trying to use some mind stuff on them, like vampires have. And finally, one of the girls broke and she just couldn't handle it anymore. And her husband had been turned, and basically yelled out loud for that they could come in, which basically invited all the vampires in. Had kind of a fun fight scene there with that.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
So, yeah, I can't say the last time I've seen any sort of adaptation of vampires quite like this. It was a well done adaptation, I thought. You can
Yeah, I agree.
bring those monsters into a very different time period. You've got Abraham Vampire Slayer that kind of does that, but you aren't as invested in a whole lot of people. Plus, that movie is intentionally a
Yeah.
B movie. It's a fun B
Yeah.
movie, but it's intentionally a B movie.
It
Where
didn't really happen. Didn't really happen. Abraham
I
wasn't a
don't know,
vampire.
could be.
Dang.
Maybe that was in his lost diary there. So
Yeah, sorry.
probably a vampire that killed him at the theater. That's probably what happened.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's yeah, well, like I said, it sparked a good conversation, or at least a conversation about the film itself. And
yeah,
me being the nerd, I like having those conversations. If the movie doesn't even make you have that any kind of conversation, then sure, maybe enjoyable, but that's kind of what I like. Yeah, and I feel like at times I had a hard time figuring out what it wanted to be. I feel
that's
like
true. I agree with that.
you said, they took a lot of time building character, and then you didn't know if it was going straight vampire, or you didn't know if it was racism mixed in there, and yeah. But when it turned full vampire, I was in. I bought in.
Yeah,
Now they have to kill him.
right. Which isn't as easy as you think, right? And then if you got a whole slew of, if there's more vampires than there are people, your odds go way down.
Because vampires have superhuman abilities too.
Right. Well, and you got to
Which
stab him in the
vampire movie?
heart, or
Yeah, so I love you picked vampire movies too. Like I think I've seen most of them pretty much. Um, which vampire movie has the where the vampires have the most power? What do you think?
well,
Is that a hard
the
one?
the
Uh,
Bram Stoker's Dracula. He has a lot of power because he goes in and really is able to manipulate and influence his different victims.
yeah,
So it depends on how much power you're looking at. For pure craziness, what's the one with oh my gosh, Selma Hayek? What was the one she was in with the snake?
it wasn't Queen of the Dead, was it?
Queen of the Dead. Yeah.
Yeah,
Tarantino and Rodriguez. Yeah.
that was a great movie.
Yeah, it is a great movie. They're pretty powerful in that one. Um,
He's killing people and leaving them around the beach and just hanging out wherever she wants.
yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, but that's not about this movie. Just a sidebar question. I wanted to hear your opinion.
No, I'm not sure which is the most powerful ones. That's an interesting thing. Sometimes you got those
Yeah.
kind of different tiers of vampires in the same kind of movie. You've got your kind of wacky vampires who are still vampires, but they're not as powerful as like the head guy. Underworld shows some of that.
Yeah. Well,
Which
shit, Blade. I mean, Blade. He
we
was a day one.
that was yeah. Well, because his mom got bit while he was pregnant. Yep.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was. He had some power. He was a
Yep.
badass.
Yep.
Love the movie.
And of course, you got the big bad guy in Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was
That's a
trying
fun
to think
one.
of the show. I couldn't remember which one.
Yep. All
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
All right. Back to this
Well,
movie.
yeah. I keep derailing us, but I digress, as my professor
That's
always.
all right.
Um, where do you rank it in terms of vampire movies? Or at least maybe what's your grade on this
Oh
movie?
my goodness. Well, I really like this movie. Now, I really like movies with blues music and stuff like that. So you've got that connection. Anytime you're kind of talking about blues players and doing, because there's a lot of mythos around really good blues players who, you got crossroads kind of stuff going on with different ones. And then this
Yeah,
one
that's
deals with
interesting.
vampires. And the ending shows him as an older blues player, the preacher boy, and that he'd
Yeah.
actually made it and all that.
Right.
So I love that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's not so I would put it somewhere, but someplace after Lost Boys and Nosferatu and Bram Stoker's Dracula. Those are pretty high on my list. So somewhere down, but I think it was a pretty well done one. So I don't. It probably 4 or 5 on my list there compared to those three are kind of those standards up there. Bram
Yeah.
Stoker's Dracula above Nosferatu, but I really like that last Nosferatu that we watched.
Oh, yeah.
Village. Uh, what was the? Oh, Salem's Lot was really good too.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that one, but I may put that above Salem's Lot. I don't know.
Yeah, there were there was a few things that didn't maybe one thing that I didn't get is
Hmm?
the ending. I don't want to give it away if someone hasn't seen it.
If
But
you're watching at this point, there will still be spoilers, so you can go ahead and
spoiler, okay. At the end, yeah, you see the old guy that made it through, the one guy that made it through all the vampire war, and then he's sitting at a bar, ready to almost die, but he's still playing guitar.
yep.
And then in walk one of the brother Michael B. Jordan vampires and his girlfriend or vampire mate, and they just kind of say,
Stack.
"How you
It was
doing?
Stack.
We've been
Yeah.
watching you the whole time." And then they put some cash on the bar, kind of walk out. It's like, what were they doing? They've been watching him for 60 years, and
Right.
yeah,
Right. They'd been paying attention because they knew him and they liked him and they left him alone. They could have came after him or whatever, but they didn't decide to go that route. They decided they would rather and then they actually offered to change him. It's like,
oh,
hey,
that's
not
right,
too
that's
late.
right.
Not too late. You can tell us
Yeah,
we'll give you, eternal youth, not youth, but eternal life from here being a vampire. But
yeah.
he's
And
like, no.
if
Right.
someone comes really old and you might die,
Right.
yeah, okay, that's good.
So
Yeah,
so it was because we weren't sure if all the vampires had died. That scene was really put in there to say, yeah, a couple of them got away,
yeah,
and they know who you are and where you are.
yeah.
And because he became a famous blues player, and they do talk about that while he's sitting at the bar as an old man, that he's now a famous blues player, that he made it big. They even come in and talk about all the different albums that he made and which ones they like best.
They
And
were
I
huge
like
fans.
I liked it better when you did it on vinyl because they could hear and so they were they were talking about that with him. The interesting thing to me was his character didn't freak out about it. He's like,
Yeah,
oh, okay. Because I think he probably had so much
sorry.
time to consider that maybe somebody did live through this. At the ending, they find a way to basically kill most of the vampires because, again, sunlight is a huge weakness. The sun comes up as they are trying to do some things. And then after that, you've got the later point of the one brother going in and basically taking on the whole KKK in the area as they
Yeah,
come to cause problems. And there's nobody there. Why is nobody here? Well, vampires just killed everybody just a few hours ago. So, and then we killed
yeah.
them. So, but
Now
no,
we're gonna
I
kill.
thought it was an interesting ending for sure. I agree. It was like I did not expect it, which I liked that I didn't expect it. I also expected that he would be like visually shaken that they showed up,
Yeah,
but I think he's like, I'm cool with my own mortality at this point. You want to kill me, then you kill me. I mean, but they're like, no, you're still our cousin. So
yeah.
they didn't do that. They
If you
basically just
kill the vampires, if you kill the vampires, that's your biggest problem. That's your biggest, arc you have to get over. And you kill
yeah,
them, you're safe now. Yeah, and
right.
then they just kind of brought that in a little bit.
Yep. So it's like, oh, look, it's not over. It also left room for a sequel if they wanted to do that.
Ah, that's what I was gonna say.
I mean, really, it really gave me that sense of like, oh, here's where we can jump on with the sequel. Okay, that's cool. And then
The director,
I'd be
the
okay with
director,
that.
maybe, man, he's a very accomplished.
Yep.
He directed Black Panther and the sequel. You know, Black Panther was $1 billion movie,
It
and
was.
a lot of decent movies. He's not a rookie.
Not a rookie. And did
Yeah,
basically made a movie that was really kind of a niche movie, but it did pretty well for what it was, especially compared to
yeah,
what other movies are doing nowadays. Movies just aren't making the money that they used to make overall. There's a few
yeah.
that will, but it was made for between 90 and $100 million. It made 367 million at the box
Oh,
office.
dang, that's really
So
good.
it did pretty well for itself, right? And of course, Michael B. Jordan is a big name.
Yeah,
Ryan Cullen, who's the director, he's a well known name also. But yeah,
yeah, yeah. I like Michael B. Jordan a lot. He did a
yeah,
great job
I
of that.
agree. He is a really good actor, and everything I've seen him in, I've really enjoyed. So,
Yeah.
well, we've talked about what it made. Let's talk about what other people say about it. Then we'll kind of give our last. I'll give our grade level on this, Joe, and go from there. But by the way, to ask you the question you asked me, where do you put this on your list of vampire movies?
Um, it's above John Carpenter's Vampires.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, below Blade, Queen of the Damned. It's
Yep.
probably I guess I'd put it in the middle, right in the middle.
Okay. All right. That's pretty
Yeah,
solid, especially for a new
yeah,
movie, right? Having to do something different. The fact that they made it different than other vampire movies,
yeah.
I really enjoyed that. I also really
Yes,
enjoyed that they didn't rush into it, right? And didn't let us see the
yeah.
vampires for a while. But that's just me. So,
Well, in music, sorry,
oh,
music, the soundtrack. I mean, I even pointed out at one point when we were watching it. I'm like, dang, I like that song, whatever it was. It was an
yeah,
instrumental. It wasn't good lyrics, but how they weaved all that in there and how it was kind of the
it
undercurrent
fit.
of the
It
movie.
fits so
And
well.
it turns out the preacher father that said the music will bring you the devil was right all along.
Right, right.
Just think he's a cranky old jerk, doesn't want his son to have fun.
Which is often what
But
kids think of their parents, right? They always think that's so. Yeah, no, I loved how they brought that back in at the end and everything else. Yeah. So, Rotten Tomatoes, of course, says it's tomato meter, and they have their popcorn meter. Tomato meter is what the critics say. The critics gave it 97% fresh.
damn, that's
The
amazing.
the popcorn meter, which is the people that went and saw the movie, the fans, they did 96%.
Wow.
People like this movie a lot,
Yeah, yeah.
according to Rotten Tomatoes. Now, when you look over at IMDb gave it a solid 7.6, but you would expect if it was going to rank somewhere around what you're seeing on Rotten Tomatoes, that would be up at a 9. It's not, which is
Yeah,
fascinating to
yeah,
me that you have that difference there.
right.
The
Quick question. How long do you know how long Rotten Tomatoes has been around? Or it's been one of the standard?
it's been a standard for at least 10 years,
10 years? Okay,
maybe
yeah.
maybe
I thought it was
15. So
yeah. I thought it was more recent. It's just
yeah,
interesting, that's what the 80s and 90s and even the 2000s. I don't think it was even in there
it
as a
wasn't. It wasn't. It
now
was in
it's
the
huge
teens there
measurable.
somewhere, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's a huge measurable.
Yep, it is. People flock to it to give their opinions and to see what other people say. Metacritic gave it an 84%. Google users that have reviewed the movie gave it an 85%. So, if you put them all together, probably about an 8.5 out of 10 for combining those different ones. But yeah, so that's pretty good. Um, what do you think of it, Joe? What kind of grade do you give this movie?
8.5 out of 10. I'll give it a B. Solid
Yeah,
B.
a solid B. That makes sense. I liked it a little more than you. I'm going to give it a
Uh,
B plus. Um,
Oh, that's
close to an A minus even. But I enjoyed this a lot. Again, the way it kind of uses that Alfred Hitchcock device of getting you invested with the people before you start killing people. I
that's
like that
such
a
a good.
lot.
I like that. That was a really good point.
Yeah. So I love that part. I loved how if it would have just stayed a blues juke joint movie and showed some, I would have watched it for that. I
Yeah.
was enjoying that part so much and those characters, and I was really almost shocked when certain people got turned. You're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
When
like you didn't
when
want to turn.
you're like, oh my gosh, no, you can't turn them. They've got to be one of the people that last to the end. And
Yeah.
nope, nope. Here you go. We're gonna do a majority of them. So
Yeah.
that yeah. So I gave it that, and so let us know what you
Interesting.
guys think.
What made you want to watch this movie? Is it because of Halloween, or you'd wanted to see it, or because
I
I guess I'm not plugged in anymore. I don't know what movies are coming out usually unless it's on streaming or something. So
well,
I'm just curious.
let me tell you. We tried to post most of the movie trailers right here at GeekyKOOL.com. Check us out, GeekyKOOL, cool with a K.com, right below us there. So I saw the trailer. I posted the original trailer and went, huh, that looks really interesting. And
Yeah, that's
then
right.
I didn't get to see it in theaters, but the summer was busy. So I'm like, okay. But when it came to HBO Max, I'm like, all right, here's a movie that I already know from the trailer has vampires in it, and it's Halloween time, and I kind of want to watch something Halloween, and then I knew that it was taking place in that 30s time frame in the Deep South, so I'm like, this will be interesting, and Michael B. Jordan, great actor, so okay, so I got in, and then I'm like, I almost forgot it was a vampire movie until we got to him because
Right.
I was so invested in the plot. So, but I got drawn in because I had already seen the trailer for it and thought this looks really interesting. So,
It was a good choice, a really good
well,
choice.
thank you. I enjoyed this choice also. I think we definitely need to do some other Halloween type of movie for next week, Joe. So I'll let you
Correct.
pick one for us. Something that we've already reviewed Alien, and now we've reviewed this one. We've reviewed the we've
Let's
reviewed a couple others there, Nosferatu, and some of the other horror movies out there. So let us know. Joe will pick something for us, and we'll kind of keep it in a Halloween theme for you guys, and let you know what we think.
And I promise I will pick like in the next couple days, not next Monday.
It's all good. It's all good. All right. So for Joe and myself, we want to remind you to stay geeky and keep watching movies. And hopefully, if all goes well with life, we will see you here again next week at this same time, reviewing something else for this Halloween time. Until then, we'll see you guys later.